Hi everyone, it's Oliver here. The video you're about to watch is a Q&A with me and Rob Hill, aka The Bad Movie Bible, that took place at Straight to Video based in Alfreton, Derbyshire. This 80s video store is a museum and a shop that contains a huge number of ex-rental VHS tapes from the 80s and 90s. It also features an 80s inspired bedroom, a screening room and an escape room based on the slaughtered lamb from An American Werewolf in London. This is a passion project for the owners Chris Annable and Rob Lane, who are very accommodating and were a great laugh to hang out with. Definitely check out this unique place, as it's a fantastic trip down memory lane, especially if you grew up renting movies as a kid. Now it's time for me and Rob to waffle on about our past and the joys and frustration of producing videos for YouTube.
Well, thanks everyone for coming. There's a special evening for us at the 80s Video Shop. We've got Oliver Harper from Oliver's Respected Reviews and Rob Hill from Bad Movie Bible. It's a bit honoured to have you guys here. Thank you for coming. I'm going to sort of chuck out our first question straight away, and it is, what's your background of films and what got you into doing the particular area that you cover?
Well, background in films. Well, I had studied in my sixth form year. Media studies and so forth, but it was kind of all stuff like VHS, Super VHS, and it was kind of pointless now in the world of digital. So we did things like radio as well. So it was all kind of everything all in one. And at the time, I didn't really continue it because I thought I'd go to university, but at the same time, I was working in a video shop called Game in Cambridge. So I pretty much stuck with that for like a number of years. I thought, I'm not going to education again. I'm getting paid well, stuck with that. But then I kind of moved into I became a projectionist, so at the Cineworld in Cambridge, and I got promoted in like a year. So I ran the projection booth. So all the new films come in. It's back when you putting together 35mm reels of film. So something like a King Kong, Peter Jackson will come on 9 reels of film, spool them all together, then spool them to these big platters, like 3 platters, so you can play the film through. It goes through on the loop, and it just resets, and you can do it again. And you've got to do that for 9 screens. From 9 a.m. to midnight. So we ended up having a number of staff, but that was it. That was kind of a really good fun job because you can watch movies for free, obviously. You get all to see everything that comes in, and also you get hyped for all the new trailers, but then being disappointed because the film's crap. I remember the excitement of, even despite being annoyed with the Star Wars prequels, like Revenge of the Sith coming out, and they seen the trailer go, okay, it feels like Star Wars again. And still being a bit like, oh, the acting's still a bit shit. But but I got kind of made redundant because the change in technology. Because obviously Rob was working in post-production, the other thing was always digital. And there's always that kind of, you were discussing a while back, where the sort of films being projected digitally. And that was the end of projectionists, because you had digital projectors all running from one big unit, which I christened Skynet, because that was the end of my job. All the films would come on hard drives, and they called it ingesting, right? To ingest the film and take hours. It's like 2 or 3 hours to ingest a film, and that essentially copies it to every projector. Then you've got to create a playlist, and then boom, play the film. And that required no skill. Just anyone could create a digital playlist. So that was kind of the end of me. But I got paid well being made redundant, because Cineworld had owned another cinema chain. It was UCI, or the one went bust, and they had been unionised, so everyone got paid well. Cineworld tried to sack everyone, basically. So I kind of pondering around what I was going to do, and at the time everyone was watching YouTube and movie reviews, and that was Nostalgia Critic and all things like that. And it was all kind of like jokey humour and like taking the piss out of films, which was kind of fun, but I wanted to do something educational, and I thought maybe I could do that. And I sort of did one video, and it's sort of on Superman 4, which is, not a great movie, but I had a sort of love for the how it was made. I sort of found it fascinating, a bit like Alien 3, which has a really interesting production, background. And so we did one video, and that was when you had to share it on forums and stuff, when forums were still a big thing before Facebook had Facebook groups and that stuff. So once I'd shared one video, someone could make another one. So I did another review on a bunch of films, and it started getting more and more popular. It took about 2 or 3 years to actually make any money where you could monetize these videos. At the time I was living with my parents. My parents were like really happy with what I wanted to do. They weren't really pushy about, you should go do this and that. They were just kind of like, yeah, just do what you want. I was like, great. So I just kind of bummed around for a bit doing that, and it sort of became more and more popular. I thought, well, maybe I could do this for a living. And it sort of all went off from there. So my background in film was kind of like more, watching movies on a, like most, like we all did, and talking about them. But it was always kind of like you talk about films just with like one or two friends. As being a projectionist, it gave you the opportunity to sort of talk to the other projectionists about that film, because a lot of the time you play the movies and go, what am I going to do for 2 hours? I'll read a magazine, or just talk to the other projectionists and talk about what you just seen. And that was sort of, that became the communication of kind of reviewing stuff. But I never thought that would extend to YouTube or social media in any sort of form. So yeah, I never had a background in writing, so that was the thing you had to learn, was be able to write about. Sort of, writing's very different, like for reviews, where you could write something like a normal review, but does that translate to movie clips, like a visual medium? So you couldn't take what I've written and then put it into a book. It just wouldn't work, because you're kind of talking about things you're showing. So someone said to me one time, we should put all your stuff into a book. I was like, well, that means I've got to rewrite everything. I'm not doing that. So I'll just do copy paste. There you go. So I had to sort of write that in a very particular way and be able to edit. And that editing process was like, you just learn by trial and error, and sort of you then pick up those sort of skills on what how things should play together, and the timing of things. Pacing as well is always a key thing. But that was kind of my sort of background, because I'd always, we all loved watching movies growing up, so I loved a particular genre. That was kind of modern blockbusters, but I was never really into the sort of weird niche stuff, because it wasn't really that readily available.
Yeah, being a projectionist, you sort of...
It's all commercial.
Yeah, it's commercial stuff, isn't it? You're not going to get like the indie stuff and things like that. So
once a year, because Cambridge had the Cambridge Film Festival, they would, it was owned by the Picture House cinema chain, which then Cineworld would buy, but the Picture House didn't have enough screens, so they would separate the showings to Cineworld. So we get some of the prints come in. We had like Bubba Hotep. They only made 2 prints of that in the UK. Anchor Bay, I think, distributed it. And I put the first print together. I was like, yeah, Bubba Hotep. And they remastered Taxi Driver. They played that at cinema. And then you get letters in the reel boxes where Michael Bay would just say, turn the volume up to 11 or something. It's like, I'm not turning it that loud. No, you can sod off. But Peter Jackson wrote a letter one time, and I think the King Kong print was a very special print because it came from the premiere in like New York. So you get odd little letters sometimes, but most of the time it's just reels of films.
Stick it together.
And then there you go. You know what I mean?
I know the trappings of that, because I flipped a film, or filmed it upside down.
Really?
Have you done that before a projection?
No.
Yeah, I fucked it up. As easy as it sounds, just flipping together 9 reels, there's an art form to it, and I think there's a
speed of it you can do it. And also, I've got film trapped in the film game. It's caught fire. People sit there going, panicking. There's this big flame goes on the screen.
Filmed upside down. The first quarter of the film was upside down.
People always said, like, because they've seen Fight Club, and they thought, well, can you put like cut in? Like pornos. I'm like, where am I going to get a 35mm print of a porno to cut in flashes of a penis? I did though. I did make the papers for my error.
Okay.
I put the wrong film on one time. I put a film on called Rika instead of Over the Hedge.
Oh, the Rika, the horror movie. Rika. Oh my god.
That made industry papers.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Because it was 18, and I played it, and the parents and the kids sat through the trailers, didn't batter an eyelid, didn't walk out and go, yeah, it's an 18-rated trailer. No, just sat through it. As soon as the film started, someone gets decapitated, and the parents went, fuck, and they ran out screaming, and the man just screamed to me, I'm so sorry. It was just human error, and that's what Cinema said. Just human error. It was human error. I wouldn't do it on purpose.
My hedges will decapitate you if they get the chance. Yeah, no, I like Ollie, I grew up loving movies, and in the 80s that meant B-movies, genre movies, Arnie, Stallone and Jean-Claude Van Damme and so on. And then after university I went into the post-production industry as a runner in Soho in 2001 or whatever, and spent 15 years. I should say, actually, my hat is at this angle because our cinematographer has had a bit of a struggle lighting things. And I'm quite old and quite bald now, but I haven't trimmed my hair, so I can't really take my hat off, so I'm kind of stuck with my hat in this weird. I just want to make sure everyone knows that it's Chris, the cinematographer's fault, not mine. But so I spent 15 years in post-production and realised I hated it because all you work on is Harry Potter, and Harry Potter's fine, nothing against Harry Potter, but wasn't my passion at either end of the spectrum. Because I love the B movies, I love the shit, that's my bag. But I love old Hollywood as well. I love Cary Grant and Humphrey Bogart, and I love foreign art house films up to a point as well. It's a guilty secret I don't share with everyone. But the B movie. So I ended up writing a couple of. But my wife's an editor, a publishing editor. So they needed her company needed someone to write a book called 501 Must-See Movies. So she said, my husband's a frustrated film critic, so I did that, and it ended up selling really well, which I didn't get a penny for. 10 grand up front, and it sold 5 million copies. That's
shit.
So so I thought, well, what is there? And then I was literally this is about 2015. Talking to a young guy at work, a young runner who was up with the YouTubes, and I'm fucking hopeless with all this stuff. Far as I knew, YouTube was cats falling off things. In 2015, that's all I knew. And someone hooked me on, someone said, the way you talk about the Star Wars prequels, you'd really like this channel Red Letter Media, who've made these videos about how shit the Star Wars prequels are. So I watched it and I did like them. I thought, yes, this is speaking to me. Turns out they do a series called Best of the Worst, and it's about the kind of movies that me and my friends grew up loving and laughing at. And then we kind of all grew up and everyone kind of fell away for everyone apart from me. And I literally realised then there's a whole community of people who love these ridiculous B movies. I had no idea. So I figured, right, well, let's write a book about it and we'll sell it as like a Christmas present. Auntie can buy it for her nephews and we'll all get rich. And that didn't quite pan out like that. And what panned out even less like that was the next book I wrote, which was about superhero movies, an A to Z of superhero movies, for which I watched 1,000, every single superhero movie ever made that is available, I watched in the space of a year and a half.
Jeez.
Wrote every one of them up. That was even less popular. And so my wife was constantly telling me, why don't you do YouTube? Why don't you start YouTube? It's too late. Like the people I watch, like Ollie and like Red Letter Media, they're established. They've been doing this for years. I was trying to get a book off the ground called Borrowing Blockbusters, which just looked at the craziest rip-offs of big popular movies. And a certain major studio had a problem with that. The first chapter was going to be called Stealing Star Wars, so that might be a clue as to which major studio it was.
They're very particular, aren't
They are a bit funny, yeah. So I got a deal for that. I got a publishing deal for that, and then a few weeks later, I didn't have a publishing deal for that because if you want to piss off this certain company, you don't get to publish any of their books, and there's a lot of money involved in publishing Star Wars books. So then lockdown hit, and just at the same time as this book got cancelled, I'm like, oh shit, what am I going to do? The whole publishing industry was really struggling at that point because of the knock-on effects of Brexit and so on. It made it very, very difficult to make any money out of it when your market is in the US, as I think both of our main markets are really. Yeah. So I thought I'll start making I'll give it a go, making YouTube videos a go, and it just kicked off really quite quickly and quite pleasingly. I was very pleased, very happy with how quickly. Probably in no small part thanks to Ollie, a common friend called Tai Singh, who I think might have hassled you to watch the video, and then you mentioned
I think he was like, watch this one on Terminator. And I was like, this is fucking incredible. Because Rob's, Rob talks, very deadpan. It made me laugh a lot, and the editing was very, very good, and very good, critiques on these kind of B movies. I was like, this is great. I just have to tell everyone. That's the kind of thing with YouTube, is that there is room to find an audience.
Yeah.
But it just requires some others with a stronger following to say, look, check this out.
Exactly. It's about exposure, isn't it?
Not enough people do that.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Exposure is the key.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you both sort of nail that really well. So it's getting the balance of how you speak, and you both do that really, really well. It's good that you're helping each other out. I think that's
yeah, for sure.
to both of you. How do you separate yourself from all the others? So what do you think is different? But I think you've already answered that to a point.
The way I separate myself is I just watch these fucking movies.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, most people don't. And, you know, and this is it. Yeah, people are constantly amazed. So, like for a borrowing blockbusters video, which might be less than an hour long, I will watch about 100 odd movies, generally speaking. Something like. Sometimes it can be 50. Something like with James Bond or something like that. Then it can be 150, 200. But there's no shortcut. That's all you can do. And if you watch these movies, you will find the clips, you will find the craziness that is worth sharing. And most people just don't do that. You know, it's like we were talking about this earlier. If you look at a list online of the 10 craziest superhero movies ever made, it's going to be 8 of those movies are going to be the same as every other list. One of them isn't going to be a superhero movie at all, but 10 years ago someone got confused and thought it was, and they've been copied ever since. Yeah. And then the 10th is just going to be a personal favourite or whatever. If you just divorce yourself from all that and just think, right, well, the only way to do this is to watch every fucking stupid superhero movie ever made, then, you know, the rest just kind of falls into place.
It sounds like a military battle. You're preparing yourself for war.
Yeah,
So I suppose for Oliver, that's an even more important question, because yours has been replicated quite a lot. So how did you get into it at the start and get in there and do it better and before everybody else?
Well, I didn't know at the time that Good Bad Flicks was around, because he discussed kind of old school movies in a particular way. Not the same as me, but because at the time, as I mentioned, there was very lot of parody reviews or, you know, like hating on movies as a sort of comic relief. I didn't really like that approach. You know, it's something I wanted to do. I wanted to do something educational, and I loved, as growing up on the BBC or ITV, they always had making ofs, or they talk about stuff, you know, like to educate people. And that was the whole idea of the BBC, it was sort of, you know, enlighten you in some way. And they don't do that anymore. And there's no film stuff. There's always music, because there must be some sort of radio license they can then use music in these programs. So, and also being a big collector of DVD and Laserdisc, and also had these behind the scenes stuff, and I thought, well, let's try and translate something of that nature into a video, make it educational. And I spent a lot of time making trailers, and really shit really early on, and just messing around with stuff. But then I sort of formulated an idea or structure of my stuff, where you have a trailer, you have a sort of recap of how successful it was and what people thought about it. Then you go into production, cast and crew, and story, and no one else really talked about soundtracks or visual effects on with movies. And I thought it was really important, music in particular, where if you took away the soundtrack to Star Wars, it wouldn't work. So yeah, that was kind of my thing. So it was all about like trying to educate people in some way, in a short way, a short space of time, because you're limited by YouTube at the time when I was doing it, and just add my reviews. And if you go back and watch them, they're not great. You know, they're kind of like me, not particularly confident with what I'm saying. Well, not what I'm saying, but you know, with my voice. So you had to sort of figure out the right way to speak, and it took practice, because some people have tried to do it. My friends have tried to do it, try to talk into a microphone, and it doesn't quite work for them. It takes them ages to get through the script. So yeah, it took trial and error and practice, and people seem to like the fact that I talked about certain aspects of the movie and gave a sort of somewhat balanced review, and not some angry guy screaming at a camera, you know, saying I don't like this movie. So that was kind of my thing. Also show, you know, what I could do editing wise, and no one else was really doing it. Now we've sort of seen people see sort of monkey see, monkey do attitude. And,
yeah, that's what I was trying to get out of that.
Yeah. So they see what I've done and go to copy it. They literally just copied the same name. Retrospective review. I'm like, well, come on, man. Come on. If it's great you're inspired by me, but if you're just going to call it the same thing, you're just doing it as someone else came along and said, I'm going to call it the Bad Movie Bible. Or borrowing blockbusters, you'd be fuming.
Don't do that. You'll regret it. It's a bad idea, mate.
But yeah, it's now become its own thing. But now it's kind of evolved now to people just take to doing like 2-hour an analysis of one movie, or a particular scene they just spend a lot of time on. I think it's a little.
It's like anything really. It becomes oversaturated.
Wow.
And people think if they shout the loudest and get pissed off the loudest, then that's going to get the most views.
Potentially, yeah.
It actually gets a bit boring there if someone's just going, this is shit.
Yeah, this is something I find really, especially because you're kind of in the realm of proper movies. Movies that are sneered and looked down upon by some of the industry, but they're still legitimate movies, whereas I sort of tend to be in this realm of shit, frankly. And it really pisses me. I just find it so tedious, the whole, oh my God, I've got to watch this terrible movie. And them and their mates, they're all sitting there going, oh my God, it was awful. Well, don't fucking watch it then. Just, like, I enjoy these movies. I love these movies. And I hope that some of that positivity is coming. Some of them are just, every now and again you will find something that's worth talking about, but that is just unremitting, just awful. In which case, slate it, hammer it. So this whole, I don't like it, it's terrible. The shorter it is, the better, and all this stuff is just...
Yeah, there's a lot of that's what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of that on YouTube, isn't it? Where the negativity is far more.
The angry movie
sellable,
reviewer, it's just.
Well, it's
have a break from it.
Well, it's always the same subjects though. Marvel, Disney, Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
So it just becomes this kind of circle of just eats itself, and it will just sort of burst its bubble at some point, maybe next year or two, and everyone will go on to the next thing to complain about, and that'll be, I don't know.
How long does it take to research, edit, and make your movies? You already answered this one. Do you really watch all that shite?
Yeah, I really do. First of all, I really do. Like I say, for the James. So when I first started, I wasn't thinking about it being manageable. I just wanted to make the best video I could about stupid Jaws knockoffs, and then after that, the best video I could about stupid Bond knockoffs. I wasn't thinking about the time frame or anything like that. I just thought, do it really well, and opportunities will follow. Things will follow. Yeah. So I've done borrowing blockbusters in 2 months, but generally it takes about 3, and that's, to be honest, that's doing hours that are fairly hardcore. That's that's not an 8-hour day. That's an 8-hour day researching and editing, and then a 5-hour evening watching. Because I have to try and make sure I watch 3 movies a night, 3 movies a day, or a night. Because during the day I'm at my desk, so at night is when I do it. And there's just no shortcuts, and it drives me mad. Ollie's always quite rightly, you've got to find a way to streamline this, because it makes no logical sense at all. You can't make any money. You can't make a living out of spending 3 months making a 1-hour YouTube video. You just can't, no matter how many people watch it.
Because he did the last one, then he did Samurai Cop, which was 1 movie. I said, look, that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Little that more.
And that was, that Samurai Cop video was like, I'm really pleased with it. I think I'm totally happy. It's one of the best things I feel like I've done. And it probably took about a month, which for me is a blink of an eye. There's just...
But now you're doing barbarian movies.
Now I'm doing barbarian movies, and thank God there aren't many of them. Barbarians is a struggle, because it's barbarian movies, and I've only just realised every single barbarian movie is basically exactly the same. So this is the first genuine stumbling block I've kind of come across. Everything, like the Die Hard one, was meant to be, my plan for that was a 45-minute video of, a couple of dozen Die Hard. And as I got researching it, there were more and more and more genuine, like this is the exact formula, it's exactly the same. I kept watching it, kept sourcing them, kept watching them, and they kept on being really entertaining. It's a great, you can't make a bad Die Hard knockoff. You can't make a bad Alien knockoff, in a way. That's a double video in the end. It went. And Alien was a double, because there are just so many of them.
So watching something like that, I would imagine the kick would be going, that's from fucking Aliens, that's from Jaws, that's from... I get that.
Yeah, or the best moment, the highlight is always finding something you didn't know about before that's completely fucking wild and genuinely entertaining. And oftentimes it's something foreign, because if it's American, you're probably going to have heard about it, you're probably going to have known about, most of us
Italian stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, so or when you get to Turkey and India and the Philippines, then like India especially, there's just so much mental stuff from India that we've just never seen here. And I'm not even talking about Bollywood. That's the mainstream Hindi language industry. Once you go down south, there are all these other film communities that speak different languages and have different actors and different styles and so on. And if it's something that's been popular in India, then there will have been a bunch of rip-offs, and they're just priceless. There's always going to be something that's just
this is going to expand on this, Greg, I'm just out of interest for me, really, is how do you like source all this stuff? And if you're looking at, say, like deep dark, like
Dark web.
well, I shouldn't ask me.
Do you mean identify or actually get hold of the movies?
How do you go like?
It's-
If you look, I mean, there's one on your Terminator ripoff, which was the Terminator Alien thing. I think it was a Ghana production.
2016, the Samuel K. and Castor film, yeah. Well, in a strange way, the really obscure stuff is sometimes easier to get because it's just on YouTube. Someone will. So in the case of that, it's a Ghanaian filmmaker called Samuel K. and Cancer, and so his whole MO is make crazy movie, put it on YouTube. That's his. So it's just there. All you need to do is know that it exists and then look for it. And it's the same with the Indian movies as well. Most of them are on YouTube. They've been recorded off the television in the 80s or 90s, and then someone's uploaded them to YouTube. And because the copyright laws in India are just whatever, I think that's the official approach to copyright in India.
Yeah.
They're just sitting there on. You just have to know they exist. And sometimes they've been watched by hundreds of thousands of people, but obviously they're all Indian.
Yeah.
So no one in the West has potentially, like the James Bond video is a classic example of this. I had no idea how many Indian knockoffs of James Bond there are from the 60s right up until today, including shot-for-shot remakes of some movies. There was an Indian shot-for-shot remake of The Spy Who Loved Me, yeah. It's fantastic because they have the song and dance numbers, but it's the James Bond theme tune they're dancing to. It's mental. It's just wonderful stuff.
So Oliver, do you have a selection process for your reviews and commentaries?
Commentaries I do because we can sort of plan ahead. So at the moment with me and Rob, because we started sort of doing like a couple of canon stuff, and I said, well, why don't we just do, RoboCop and Terminator and Alien? Because Rob said, I love talking, because Rob's always talking about films, the bad movies, good bad movies. But obviously he'd done the boring blockbusters on Terminator and Aliens. So it won't be easy to sort of get him to sort of talk about those again. And that then became easier to sort of figure out, what's going to be next, But in terms of retrospectives, it was always, I think early on I had a process of maybe like 3 or 4 films ahead of time. But often the case that I just pick one out of the blue. Like I was just going watching the Mad Max films. I went, oh, good. Oh, Thunderdome's really good. Or there's parts of it I really liked, some I don't. But I thought, well, I'll review that next. So I did 1 and 2. I might as well get number 3 done. So that was kind of it. It wasn't like I thought about it months in advance. And I had thought about some, like the third Matrix film. I did the second one. The first one did really well, stupidly well on YouTube. I thought, I'll do Reloaded then. I thought that should do well. Nope, didn't do very well. It kind of did like a quarter of what the views were on the other one. I thought, I don't want to do the third one now. I mean, it's just got to put his effort in. No one's really going to watch it.
That was what the whole world thought when they went to see the second one at the cinema, and they go, I don't want to see the third one.
Exactly, yeah. So people aren't really fussed about the sequels. I'm like, I'll have to do it at some point because people get annoyed. So back early on, I used to do like things out of order. Like, I'll just review RoboCop 3. And people are like, well, why didn't you review RoboCop 1 and 2? I'm like, I wasn't in the mood, So I had something to say at that point. Usually I do it because I want to talk about it, not just because I've got endless requests for it. Because requests can always be a little bit of a double-edged sword because, there's some sort of a demand for it. But when you do the review and put the time in, it doesn't do very well because that small number of people made a lot of noise for me to cover this movie. And then that doesn't actually translate to the majority of my audience. Yeah. So I'm like, well, okay, that was a freebie. Didn't make any money off that. Spent 2 weeks on that or 3 weeks.
Keeping it fresh, because I spoke to you about the RoboCop one that you both did.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a fantastic documentary, RoboDoc.
RoboDoc, yeah.
How good's that?
It must be difficult to not cover all ground with those sort of films, with the most popular ones. Like
we said that with the RoboCop.
Well, this is where you were really smart because you're a good level beyond me in terms of figuring out what people actually want from a commentary. And we sat down to do that one, and Ollie just said, look, there's no point in doing this like a fact-based, trivia-based commentary about RoboCop. Anyone listening to this has probably seen RoboDoc. So let's focus a little bit more on personal perspectives and that kind of thing. And I think that's definitely the right. And then we did RoboCop 2 the other day, and it's like, that we can get back to being a little bit more trivia oriented and so on. That's something Ollie's really good at.
First memory of movies is like going to the movies.
My first memory of movies, in terms of watching movies, is Star Wars. It's my first memory and my eternal memory, and to this day, it's my favourite thing probably. It's that original. I'm not interested in anything that's happened in the last 30, 40 years, but those original that was. And my first memory of going to the cinema is actually weirdly. I was thinking about this on the way up today. It's great. First film I remember seeing in the cinema was Never Say Never Again for some reason.
Nice.
Don't know why. I remember being really excited all afternoon because we were going to watch the new James Bond film.
What year?
In
83.
83, that'd be. So I'd have been 6.
I think it's very difficult to remember. I think maybe my first memory of watching a movie possibly be a Star Wars film on TV. But I still remember seeing Jaws. It was we went on a holiday, this kind of like down in Cornwall, and we had to stay at this massive hotel. And I remember it had this kind of, not many people were there, and we sort of stayed in the front room. And on BBC One there was Jaws, and it was the bit where the guy gets eaten. What's his name? Quinn. Nightmares. That was horrible. It's still horrible to watch now. I was just like, I can't watch it, even over 40. So it was just, I think I remember seeing that. Like it may have been like a, just a random Bond film. You know what I mean? So it's very difficult to look back then.
This is it. As Brits, James Bond was, especially back then, James Bond was just central to everything. It was on TV all the time. Your dad liked it. It was in the cinemas all the time. It was just
Goldfinger on the telly.
Yeah. I mean, how many times did we see? Most of the films from the '60s that I had seen in the early '80s were probably James Bond movies.
Well, it's a weird thing, and then people ask you about who your favourite Bond was, and mine's. It really, I mean, I love Timothy Dalton, but Roger Moore was always be special because
we were talking about this earlier.
Because his repeats of these films were kind of more frequent for me.
Roger Moore is clearly the best James Bond, and any alternative views are incorrect.
But the first film I saw at the cinema was Ninja Turtles. It was 1990, and it came out like August, maybe October. So I would have turned 8. So it was like my dad had a choice of either hanging out with my grandparents or taking me to the cinema. And he was like, well, I'm going to take Laura to the cinema. And
Ninja Turtles or grandparents?
Yeah,
what's the difference?
I remember seeing that. I still remember vivid memory, and all these kids, laughing and like clapping. And my dad walked out and just turned to me and goes, Oliver, that's the biggest pile of shit I've ever seen. And I was like, that was amazing. And then we went down the street, and you've got a film magazine and Ninja Turtles on it. I was like, I'm keeping that. So that was. But my other friends, at school, their first film was like Santa Claus the movie in a cinema, or Superman 4, or Master of the Universe. Because that weird point where you're 8 years old, maybe 6 or 7, you could go to cinema and actually remember what you'd seen.
And you need parents who are prepared to take you to something you want to see, which
exactly
I didn't have at that time. So.
It's got Bond.
Yeah, I didn't do too bad. Yeah, I did. My parents didn't care about showing me things I wanted to see, but their taste was quite reasonable. So, yeah, exactly.
Sorry?
Did you get the nunchuck scene?
Now's all cut out, wasn't it? It was in the UK, BBC, wasn't it? So
David Furman, James Furman, whatever his name is, scared of nunchucks, wasn't he?
Do you know why?
They haunt me at night.
Guy was a lunatic, as far as I can tell.
Massive thing, no nunchuck.
It's like The Exorcist, you can understand. Like, apparently The Exorcist just goes, this is James Furman, the president of the BBFC. But apparently The Exorcist just scared him so deeply that he decided the rest of the country wasn't allowed to see it. But yeah, Ninja Turtles, what's the story there?
It all stems from Enter the Dragon, so sort of a play on that. Which Enter the Dragon, is only like a short bit with Bruce Lee doing nunchucks. You saw more in like Fist of Fury and Way of the Dragon, but it was kind of just like
we forget in this country. I genuinely was talking about this in a I did an interview recently for a VHS documentary, and what we forget here is that we had the video nasties, and there were all these movies that we weren't allowed to see, but we do tend to overlook the fact that even outside those horror movies, we were censored and banned to within an inch of our lives here in this country in the 80s. All kinds of other movies. The nunchucks is a great example. You're not allowed to have nunchucks in a movie. Why?
Because you can essentially hurt yourself.
I've got my VHS of Enter the Dragon at home, which was released in something like 1993, and it doesn't have the nunchuck scene in it. It's 1993.
My friend brought
20 years
my
after
friend
it
brought back
came
an
out.
American tape for me to watch it. in like 96.
Exactly.
And 2 years later it comes out in the UK. Nunchucks are back, and you watch it and go, oh, it was just this bit.
Yeah.
Little hits and dude. And that's
Texas
about
Chainsaw Massacre was another one.
What was the fuss all about that?
I watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time as a university student on a bootleg. It's still...
Okay, going on to movies and your favourite memory of a video shop.
Well, I live around the corner from one.
Oh.
Like, you know, as a kid, so it was like a 2-minute walk around the corner. Used to drive the owner mad because I just go around there every week and talk to him, and like a 6, 7-year-old or 9-year-old, he's like, "Oh, not you again," you know. And so he had all the new releases where it'd always be like 6 because it wasn't like a Blockbuster. It was a privately the Americans would call mom and pop shop. So the new release is about 6 of the new title, which would like maybe like Under Siege. And then if you buy that, you get another one for free, or, you know, all the kids' films on one side, and then you go the other side, horror and porn. So it was just like, you just look at the horror, like the house with a finger going with the doorbell. And there's one called Hellgate, some awful skull. It was disgusting. We rented it. It was one of the shittest films. But I had to get my dad to get me to rent out 15 rated movies or 18 horror stuff, you know. So after a while, we came to about 11 or 12, the owner knew me enough. She just go, yeah, you can have this 18 rated movie on it. It's like, yeah. And so that was always cool. Going every Saturday, you know, go rent a movie. And that was the joy of it. That's kind of the, you know, as 80s video shop. It's the joy of being able to see what you want to choose and and talk with people and sort of, is it worth watching, or look at the back. And some of those tapes you've got out in your shop with just a picture of a dude just posing. I'm like, what was that? What's it supposed to be? You know, it's like it's a limited kind of imagery on the back. And to sort of take the risk, and you could find a really good film.
That Vindicator case we were looking
yeah.
at earlier, yeah. Just,
That's great, man.
Or
That's
the
good.
back of the Vindicator.
Yeah,
The whole thing.
That's one of the only. It's one of the only movies where the video case is as bad as the movie. I think Vindicator.
Yeah. But even like the Mad Max, like you just got a picture of Max on the back with a gun. It's like, oh, okay. So now, actually, no, even with Blu-rays, Arrow on the back, it will just be text. There's no picture. Like,
Yeah.
What's this film again? So
Loads of text as well sometimes. Just
when you get older, you read
need my peepers.
yeah. But yeah, it was always quite sad though when it went, because it did go to DVD, that video shop, and it did rent out Mega Drive games. So that was always a good thing. I mean, living in a town just outside of Cambridge, so you had this kind of, you're still in a rural area, so having access to videotapes and video games was actually really quite handy as a kid. But yeah, there's always kind of a fond memory of that, and they always gave away the posters. It was always good.
Yeah.
They weren't the big ones. They always got the video shop
Yeah,
posters.
yeah.
So
And always for movies you didn't really want.
yeah.
Frankly,
I don't think I wanted Clueless.
my whole wall was pasted.
yeah.
Feds with.
Oh my
do you remember
God,
that?
Feds,
Yeah.
with Feds,
God
yeah.
Almighty, that poster looked down at me for years. I grew up in a small town called Alton in Hampshire, and it was the Alton Video Club on Turk Street. And you could smell it from the next street because the guy chain smoked, and he had the door open, sat behind his desk, chain smoking. He had this massive, like, rear projection TV, which this would be the late 80s by this point, I think, the mid to late 80s.
Wow, that's pretty
Massive rear projection TV by the counter. Every single day after school, we'd walk straight down there, straight into through the open door, sit down in front of whatever Arnold Schwarzenegger movie he decided that this collection of 11-year-olds need to be exposed to today. So he'd sit there. Well, I've got such a clear memory of him sitting there, leaning over the counter so we can see too, chain smoking his Marlboros. There's 5 of us kids on the floor, and there's a woman stepping over us to rent a Disney movie for her 5-year-old, whilst these skinned cadavers are hanging down on this massive screen. I think I knew then life would never get any better than that. It's all just been disappointing since.
No one's going to experience that ever again, are they?
No.
No. Very unique experience.
And there are those who think that's a good thing, and I would argue they are wrong.
Yeah, I think so. That's that story that now is this day and age. You go, oh, alarm bells are ringing, but it's beautiful.
Exactly. It was civilization. I mean, everything worked. Everyone was happy. That he wouldn't rent you videos unless you were not wearing your school tie. If you wanted to buy an ex-rental video and you were wearing your school tie, somehow that was fine. Because buying ex-rental tapes at the age of 12, when there's an 18 certificate sitting right there, for some reason buying them ex-rental, in his mind, that's different. I'm not renting them, so it's fine.
What crime's been committed here?
Exactly. If they want to buy it, they must be aficionados. It's the renters we need to protect.
The very last question, which is the hardest question I think to answer. Favourite movie?
Oh, will you go first?
I can do this easily, actually, because I have two joint favourite movies that are above everything else, and they are Star Wars and 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Seriously?
I can't do one. One, I will shoot myself in the head before I have to pick between those two. But
I've said this many times. It always flip flops, but I like Rob. I've got two: Ghostbusters and Superman the movie. Yeah, I mean, there's other ones we all love, like Terminator and RoboCop, because I also base it on obviously it's nostalgia, but it's also films that you've watched so many times. If you watch a film like 1,000 times, then it's gonna be like that's gonna be your favourite film, right?
yeah.
You can't say. I mean, Shawshank Redemption's incredible. I've seen it about 10 times.
I'm only finding this out about you now. Jesus Christ.
To go to the very last question on this then. So, your favourite, what if you were left, you've got one film to the rest of your life? You've got to watch it on repeat, so it doesn't, that's a more difficult question than going...
You're right, it is, yeah.
My favourite film isn't my film I'd take to me to a desert beach. It's something that pings every time.
Would it be a porno?
I was thinking
good point.
I was Tropic Thunder.
Has it got to be a movie? Be a movie. It's got everything in it. It's got the horror. It's got the porn. It's got the action. It's got the comedy.
No, that's a perfect question. It's one. You've got one movie. You have to pick one movie to watch.
Yeah, but one movie has to have all those bits in it.
Bad Boys.
I think you want something.
It's all over the lines over there.
I think you want something long is going to pay off here, isn't it? The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is coming straight to mind.
Long.
It's one colour though. You want more colour.
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah.
Not just sepia.
But then the only music I will ever hear again is Sergio Leone's. So.
I don't know. Carry On Camping.
I'd tell you what, I'd take that over. I watched it twice. So you can watch it once.
Okay,
Something that's funny.
man, that's a good choice.
Yeah.
That's a good choice.
Ace Ventura. I could probably watch that.
That's a great choice. That's a
Something
great.
into my head.
A comedy would be a smart move here. Airplane could be
Naked
the
Gun, something like that. Yeah. Weird
Fateful
Science.
Findings. That's
Try and figure it out.
yeah.
Eternity to figure
After
out.
eternity, you might have some idea what's going on.
You descend into madness and go, I know what the fuck is saying now.
Exactly. If you're trapped for eternity, what you want is to lose your mind as quickly as possible, so you don't have to deal with reality. In which case, Neil Breen is the only answer.
Oh God.
So that's the answer to the whatever film you're taking.
Fateful Findings. That's my final answer.
We're coming back from that desert island going, I really want a denim
Camping and
jacket.
Fateful Findings.
Sleeveless one.
Two very successful YouTube channels, Carry On Camping and Fateful Findings. It's everything. Well, thank you very much. So take a 5-minute break to get some drinks and then I'm going to put
The fella one. Yay!
Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to click the like button and hit the bell to be notified of my latest reviews. Big thanks to my patrons and YouTube members for supporting the channel. If you want to get involved and gain access to exclusive videos and take part in Q&As, follow the link below.